Welcome to Sliver and Bite TV. Today we're making chicken tikka pockets. A slightly more modern version of chicken tikka and naan. We're basically just mashing it together. Well, not literally, but you know what I mean. Chicken tikka pockets, great as a quick snack, but also could be used for catering. Don't forget to check out sliverandbite.com or search your favorite recipes right here on YouTube. Start by adding your yeast and sugar to some tempered water. You want this ideally at 40 degrees Celsius or 104 degrees Fahrenheit. And then cover with some cling film to trap in the heat. And then you'll see that I also put a tea towel over the top of it. Also assists in trapping the heat. Now you'll see 10 minutes on, I got to move it out of the way and my jug isn't quite large enough. So it's burst through the cling film and run down the sides. We'll deal with that in a second. Place your ghee or butter into your milk and then pop that in the microwave. On a reheat, all we want to do is slightly warm the milk, which will then in turn melt the ghee or butter. Now I'm going to do my best to salvage the yeast from the bench, just mixing the top of it just to make the solids sort of sink down a bit, and then try and scoop this up. And this is why you should always wipe down your benches, because I have no reservations in putting this back into the mixture because I know my benches are super clean. Just retrieving the ghee and milk mixture and just stirring that a little just to combine the two and further melt the ghee. The reason I'm using ghee in this recipe and why the recipe for naan calls for ghee is because you will end up cooking it at a very high heat and the dairy solids within the regular butter burn much quicker. So we're just removing that dairy. Now adding your yeast and sugar mixture into the flour along with the ghee and milk, salt, room temperature egg, and room temperature Greek yogurt. And now mixing to fully combine. At this point, there is no need to knead this dough. We are simply going to combine it and form it into a ball within this bowl, cover, and let it rise. Naan does run quite sticky, so if you find you are touching it and some of it's transferring to your finger, you can sprinkle over a little bit of flour. This will now sit in a warm space for up to an hour and a half. Now it's time to get started on the chicken tikka. Because this is going into some raw dough, we don't want to have too big a chunks. So we want it to be cut into 1 centimeter squared or 1/2 inch squared cubes. Having the chicken cut into such small cubes certainly speeds up the process. And as per usual, I won't bore you with chopping all of this chicken on camera, so I've just sped that up. last bit of chicken going in now. And with a fine tooth grater, or you can finely mince it with a knife, just rub your ginger. Basically, you're zesting it because we want it to be extremely fine. When you are doing an ordinary chicken tikka, you would be blending the sauce. So because we're not doing that, we are going to basically zest the garlic and scoop that up and put it on top of the chicken. Bring that bowl closer, and we're putting in the chili powder, salt, and garam masala, followed by the lemon, and the Greek yogurt and tomato puree. If you want to learn how to make the garam masala, click the link above now, or search sliverandbite.com and you'll get all the ingredients and the video tutorial. And while I was gas bagging, I also put in some cream cheese. Mix that really well, just to make sure that all the ingredients are combined, and that can sit covered in the fridge until your naan is ready. However, I will be cooking it straight away because of my timing. The naan is almost ready to be measured out, rolled out, and then the filling added. We will cook this off and let it cool to the side because you don't want to add the hot mixture to your naan. A little bit of vegetable oil in a fry pan, which, if you like the look of this fry pan, you can look at the links below. And anything that you see me cooking with in this video tutorial, you can purchase through my Amazon links. And then we're just going to cook this through, make sure our chicken is internal temperature, which will be hard to gauge because they're such small little cubes. But the internal temperature of chicken should be at least 75. However, we're looking to make sure that the sauce thickens, so that tikka sauce, we don't want it to be too runny because it will affect the cook once it goes into the naan. And you might be thinking, there is no sauce. However, once the chicken starts to sweat a little bit, it does get a little bit juicy. So we want to make sure we're just reducing that down. Now it's time to get the naan ready. So uncover and then lightly flour your bench. At this stage, we will switch to semolina further on in the cook, but at this stage, while we're kneading and making sure we've got the right texture for our dough, use the flour. You want to make sure you scrape out the bowl because we need absolutely every last bit of dough. And you may need to go in with a little sprinkle of flour over the top of this, as it might be a little sticky. Then lightly massage the flour into your naan, just to make sure that it's not sticking to your fingers. And like most breads, we don't want to handle it too much. But you'll see that I'm pushing down on it. And what I'm doing is that because when I fold it over, it essentially creates an air pocket. And if there's flour, it doesn't stick to itself. And we don't want that because that seam will come undone when it's been cooked. So make sure you've got one solid log. I'm now just weighing this so that I can divide it evenly. And using a bench scraper just to cut off the portions and divvy that up into equal amounts. It's not so important to have it look all identical unless you are presenting it to somebody. If it's just for you at home, you can just guesstimate it. You'll notice that I put some semolina on the cookie tray, just so that once I roll these into balls for their final proof, it doesn't stick. And you'll see that I'm folding it in on itself, kind of like darting some socks, and then making sure that I pinch the bottom of it just to seal it, kind of like a dumpling. And the reason for sealing the bottom of your dough ball when it goes to proof is you don't want it to start rising and then push out to the sides. You want to keep it in its nice, neat little ball, and by pinching the bottom of it, it doesn't allow it to spread. And you may find that you need to flour the bench. And once you've finished portioning off and darting your dough balls, they need to sit covered for up to 15 minutes. Don't leave it too long. You can overproof your naan, and we don't want to do that. Now it's down to the exciting part. Clean your bench down and then sprinkle some semolina. Retrieve your naan balls and then remove from the baking tray. Maybe a little sticky, but that's okay. A little semolina over the top of that. That'll fix that right up. And we're going to flatten out into little discs. There are several ways that you can do this. I'm using a rolling pin. It can and most likely will get stuck to the rolling pin or to the bench. So just be ginger with it because you don't want to tear any holes. That's why I'm using my fingers instead of a bench scraper, just to minimize any tearing. So be patient, and you'll see that I pick it up and flap it. And that way you get it quite thin without it being torn or getting stuck to anything. This is a little bit of a skill to get refined, but practice makes perfect. Once you have enough of your naan discs ready, you can heat up your griddle and put on some ghee, again with the ghee, because as you can see, it is roasting hot. Then we will grab one of the naan discs. I'm just rearranging so it's easy to pick up once I've put the filling in the center of it. You don't want to overfill it. It's roughly 2 tablespoons. But of course, trial and error, and you can do as little or as much as you like. One of the steps I didn't show you, and you can actually see in the video there, is that I have some diced up mozzarella and some finely chopped coriander. You can actually drop that in once the chicken tikka is cooled a little, because you don't want the cheese to melt straight away. Makes it harder to handle when you're putting it into the naan. One last one now. 2 tablespoons in the center, and then you're pulling the outer part of the naan up and over, and as you're doing it, pinching it together. It's hard to not have too much of the naan underneath it. It's just unfortunately a fact, because you've got to actually pinch it together, otherwise it'll just fall apart in the pan. So we're now putting the pockets onto the griddle, and as you can see there was a little hole. So if you see any little holes, you just simply pinch it together just to make sure that it doesn't get any larger. Remember, the filling is completely cooked. So all you're doing here is cooking the naan, essentially, and slightly warming the chicken tikka inside the pocket. Make sure you're double checking underneath it every now and then. Remember, this is a hot griddle, so you don't want it to burn. However, it is nice to have some char. Just putting a little bit of ghee on the side of the griddle and basting the top, because here I will be adding some nigella seeds. Nigella seeds have just a hint of onion, but there is something ornately authentic to Middle Eastern, Indian, and North African cuisines. Honestly, try it, you'll love it. And once you're satisfied with the bottom, it's time to flip. Beautiful golden brown. Whilst you do want your griddle, or however you're cooking your naan pockets, on a high heat, just fluctuate the heat, because you can really ruin it by burning it. So you're better off having to adjust the heat up to, get it to the temperature you want, rather than having to throw it out because you've burnt it. Just basting the other sides of the naan pockets with some of the runoff. You'll see that they're kind of like an English muffin at this point, and there's no browning around the outsides. You can flip them up on their sides, stack them next to each other to brown up the edges as well, completely up to you. However, the heat would have cooked and solidified the sides of the chicken tikka pocket. I've just put on some coriander, and we're just about ready to take these off. Cut them or tear them and enjoy. Happy with that? Time to take them off the griddle and see what's inside. At first I cut it open, however, it wasn't the desired effect that I wanted, because obviously it didn't have the string of the mozzarella. But give that a taste and then go in for a second one, see if we can get the money shot. Oh yeah, there it is. Honestly, such a great snack, and it's quite filling too. You're getting your protein from the chicken, and you've got that filling aspect of the naan. Honestly, it's an all-rounder. Thanks for joining me for Chicken Tikka Pockets. You can head to sliverandbite.com.au for all you need to know about this and so many more recipes. See you soon.